Hello guys, and welcome back to the DocMack car channel. And today what I'm going to show you is how to purchase a used car. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. It's completely free to subscribe, and I'm going to post 3 different videos on how you can purchase a used car. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, we are now here with my BMW. So this is a 2006 BMW 330i. Now you know how I was talking about the valve cover gaskets that can leak sometimes. Now if you look at it here, right where I'm pointing, if you see that little orange color bit there, that's what you call the valve cover gaskets. So how I was talking about power steering, this is a hydraulic power steering. Alright, so now as you can see, if you dab that and you dab it right here, and you shut it back in again, and you take it out, you can see that it's a little low on power steering fluid. But if you look on the inside there, and I just take a little dot like that, and I touch it, you can see that this fluid is relatively clear. So that is still relatively good fluid. Now, this one is not that low. You just need to be able to touch the tip. So it's not too bad. But as you can see, this is what your power steering fluid should look like. And if you can actually smell it as well. But don't go too close. If it smells burnt, then your power steering fluid is bad. So I'm going to put that back in there. Now the same thing goes with your transmission fluid. Now the gearbox on certain cars are steel, so you do not have a transmission dipstick. So like the Toyota Camry I showed you just now, there's no transmission dipstick. And on this BMW as well, there's no transmission dipstick. So what you have to do is you have to look at service records to actually see if that has been done, because there's no way for you to actually check the condition of the fluid without going under the vehicle, opening the filler plug, and then taking a sample from there. The water pump is located right down here. It is pretty hard to see it, and you have got to go under the car to replace it. That water pump and that thermostat is electronically driven. Those water pumps are prone to failure around 75-80,000 miles. And this car has done 75,000 miles. And on the BMWs, you can see you have got an engine oil filter housing. Now, certain German cars also have got this kind of thing. You need to look for leaks around this area. So that's your engine oil filter, your oil cooler. There's a gasket in between here, and there's a gasket in between your engine block. Now, if that leaks, it will drop onto the Serpentine Belt. And if it gets onto the Serpentine Belt, the belt will slip and will get consumed by the engine, and you could have some catastrophic engine damage. Alright guys, you know how earlier I was telling you that the starter motor is fairly easy to replace on the Toyota Camry? Well, on this vehicle, the starter motor is more towards the firewall of the engine. You can't actually see it from here. You'll need to take out the intake manifold right here, and then you'll need to take out all the pipings, and you'll need to go down there to replace it. Now that is a very expensive thing to replace, so that's why I always say with the vehicle that you're going to buy, make sure the water pump, thermostat, alternator, the starter motor, and all those things, like the Serpentine Belt as well, and whether it's prone to cam chain failure. So if you do that research on that particular model of vehicle before you buy it, then you know exactly what to expect. And on this BMW here, now you have got your cooling system right here, your radiator down there, and now what happens is you've got a transmission cooler right down below. Again, it's really hard to see, but what can happen is because of the level of the transmission cooler, sometimes if the line cracks in between, you could get transmission fluid in your coolant and coolant in your transmission fluid. And you're going to unscrew it. And as you can see here, this is a dipstick. Now this dipstick actually moves, you can see, like so. So that means there's coolant in there. Now this BMW uses blue color coolant. So what you can do is you can take a small sample if at all the owner does allow you to. But if at all it looks all good under here, there's no fibers here, because if somebody did put some head gasket sealer, then you would see a lot of fiber, sort of crusty looking things there. Then I would just walk away. Don't bother anymore with the vehicle. Right, the other thing you also need to do is, you know how I talked about the transmission fluid can get into your coolant system? You need to take a sniff. No, it just smells a bit sweet to me, which is the typical thing of the coolant, so that's fine. There's no issues right there. Now what you want to do also is when you start up the engine, you want to hear for any leaks or whistling sounds, or if you hear any tick 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 sound, it could be a fuel injector, it could be a worn-out timing chain guide as well. So now if you guys have any issues like that while checking a car, feel free to comment down below and I'll be able to advise you on that one. Now what I also want to do is when you are going to start the engine, to check the engine mounts as well as the gearbox mounting, you need to get somebody into the vehicle, make them start the car and watch the engine. Does it shake violently or does it slightly shake? If it's violent shaking, you got bad engine mounts. So now the other thing you need to do is always try to take somebody with you to actually see a car, no matter if they know nothing about vehicles, because when you are looking for something, they might actually see something that you don't. Alright guys, and as you can see there, the shake was very small. I'll just step back a bit. So the shake was very small, so that means the engine mounts are good and the mounting from the engine to the gearbox is most likely good. Now I'm going to show you guys a few things in the test drive, which is going to be in another video because it's too long a video to make into one. Now we're going to listen for any whistling sounds or any ticking sounds, anything out of the ordinary. And you can see that the serpentine belt is running straight. If your serpentine belt is actually going back and forth like that, or let's say in your front wheel drive vehicle your serpentine belt is going back and forth, then that could indicate that you have actually got some sort of pulley damage. As you can see, engine sounds perfect. Now with the serpentine belt, you always want to make sure that you see it running and it shouldn't go back and forth. Now this is the front of the engine, that's the back of the engine. And just now on the Toyota Camry, that's the front of the engine, this is the back of the engine. So the gearbox is mounted at the back that way, and on the other vehicle the gearbox is under the engine mounted, and the engine is mounted over the gearbox. Alright guys, so now the other thing you want to also make sure is in certain countries you can cross-check the engine number of the vehicle. So how do you know that this is the original engine? So if you look right there, where my middle finger, no, I won't use my middle finger, I'll use my index finger. Right here, that's the engine number. Now you can cross-check that with the documentation of the vehicle, and if that engine number matches, the likeliness is the original engine in the vehicle. Because sometimes people can actually put a higher mileage engine into a vehicle and you might not know until you check that one, because the engine number is something which corresponds with the engine. The other thing you guys want to do is you want to check that the VIN number matches what's on the vehicle as well. Now I'll go on my Toyota Camry now and I'm going to show you what the engine number looks like on that car. Alright guys, so you know how I was talking about cross-checking the engine number of the vehicle. Now this is your 2AR FE engine. So as you can see, so you can't actually look at it, but I'm going to point to it. It's right down there where my middle finger is, down here, just a bit further down. You can see that this is your engine number there, and it's etched into the engine block. So what you can do is you just need to check that that number matches the vehicle. Alright guys, the other thing you also want to make sure is that when you start the engine, you turn on the aircon compressor, and you want to make sure that you do not get any squealing sounds from the aircon compressor. It could be a pulley damage, and also you want to make sure that the aircon is nice and cool. If it stops blowing air, then the most likely chances are it could be a compressor issue, and you can definitely check. I'm going to show you in my BMW how the compressor looks. Alright guys, so that's why you need to check the air conditioner compressor as well. So as you can see, the crank pulley is around there where my hand is pointing. Now the aircon compressor is this one right there. So you can see that big circular looking thing down here where my hand is, where my finger is. That's where the aircon compressor is. And that compressor, when I cross-checked it on the side, as you can see, right here where my finger is pointing, There's a little date code on that one, and the compressor says that it's been replaced in 2020, and the aircon was also recharged, because I do have some invoices from the previous owner. So the air conditioning system on European cars can be extremely expensive to repair. So these are the things you need to take a look at. So I got a fairly new compressor and I've got it regassed, so I don't have much to worry about. Alright guys, and when you're going to start up the vehicle for the first time, what you need to do is slot the key in or put the key into the ignition, and you're going to turn it into the run position. You can see all the engine lights have come on. Your check engine light, your ABS, your stability control light, everything. You want to make sure that when you start that, it all goes off. Okay, and as you can see, the only remaining one is the seat belt. So we're going to put the seat belts on. And the only other remaining one will be the handbrake. So I'm just going to put my foot on the brake and release the handbrake. And as you can see, there are no other lights on now. You always want to make sure that you definitely do see all of these, because if somebody has put a tape on it, you will not see that at the startup. All right guys, so the last thing that you need to do is you want to check that you've got a Obd2 scanner that you can scan your vehicle with, and it can give you some indication as to if your car's health is good or whether there's something wrong with the vehicle. So, or you can either use this or you can use a cheaper Obd2 scanner. Now this one will just plug directly in, and this one needs a smartphone connectivity. So I'm going to plug that in right now. Alright guys, as you can see, I now have my blue driver on. Now what you guys need to do is you just need to click on read codes, and now it's going to scan the whole vehicle, and scan has been successful. Continue. So you can see there's absolutely nothing right here, and when you can go scan, and that's nothing. What we're going to do is we're going to use this conventional cheaper tool, which you all can buy, because not everyone will have a blue driver. Now there's nothing totally fancy about the blue driver, but it's a relatively good tool for the price that you pay. So I'm going to pull the other one out, and I'm going to plug this one in. And now what you need to do is you need to have the key of the car on. As you can see, it says Obd2, so I can select enter. So it's going to enter, and it's going to do all the system checks of the car. MIL status is off, which means that your engine check light is not on. So you can go enter, and then you can go read codes and enter. Now it's going to process. Vehicle has no fault codes. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start the engine. Engine is started, and you're going to go exit, and then you're going to go read codes again. And what you can do is you can keep this one plugged into the vehicle, drive around, and then just check, pull over to the side of the road and check. And if at all there's no codes, then you should be good to go. Alright guys, so now I've turned off the engine. And that is the end of the first part of how to purchase a used vehicle. Make sure to check out my second video as well, and my third video, which is going to come out. So make sure you subscribe so you'll never miss another one of my videos. Thanks guys, have a great day.